Hey YouTube, wanted to do another short little video here about bullet seating depth. When you go into the reloading manuals like Lyman or Hornady or whatever, what you'll find is what they call the C.O.L, the case overall length. And what case overall length is just what it says. It's the dimension from the point of your bullet to the base of your cartridge. So that dimension right there, case overall length. What I found through the shooting that I've done and the experimentation that I've done here is that if I can keep my bullet ogive, or that curve of the bullet where it engages the lands on my rifling, or where it first engages the lands on my rifling of my rifle, if I can keep that point of my bullet approximately 10 to 20 thousandths of an inch off of those lands, it helps me produce the most accurate hunting round. Some of the people that I've talked to actually get that ogive of the bullet even closer than the 10 to 20 thousandths of an inch that I'm talking about here. But for hunting, you want a little bit of gap there. So if there's a little bit of moisture, if there's a little bit of dirt or whatever that might get into your rifle while you're out hunting, you're going to be sure that the round will still chamber. So what I've targeted is a gap of about 10 to 20 thousandths of an inch. Okay. Now the trick is, for every rifle and for every bullet that you use, it's going to be a little bit different. So here I have a Sierra. This is a 2145, so it's 165 grain, 30 caliber bullet. I'm sorry, this is the Hornady bullet. And then I have the Sierra right here next to it. And what you might be able to see in the video, I'm not sure, is the bullets obviously have a little bit of a different shape. Okay, the ogive of these two bullets actually falls along different points of those bullets. So if I'm trying to get that ogive, and I'm just going to put this together here, if I'm trying to get that ogive within 10 to 20 thousandths of an inch of the rifling of my barrel, it depends on which bullet I'm using. If I'm using this one, it's going to be different than if I'm using this one, or if I'm using any other manufacturer, any other style bullet. The process that I'm going to show you here today is specific for every bullet that you're using. It's also specific for every rifle that you're using. So for example, the rifle that I'm using is a Savage Model 111. I'm using the Sierra 2145 bullet. If I want to go to a different rifle with this bullet, I have to do this process again. If I want to use that same rifle with a different bullet, the Hornady bullet, for example, then I go through the process again. So each one of these is specific to this rifle and this bullet combination. The way that I do it is, I know they sell some gauges that you can buy that will help you measure that distance in your rifle. What I've kind of struggled with to understand is I'm not sure how those gauges compensate for the different shapes of bullets. So if you have a higher ogive or a lower ogive on your bullet, I'm not exactly sure how those would work. So what I've done is I've taken a case that I've prepared and it's ready for loading, and what I've done is using this Hornady collet-based bullet puller. What I've done is I've pressed the bullet into the case and I've pulled it out, pressed it in, pulled it out, and to the point where it got loose enough that I can put the bullet into the case by hand and it'll actually sit there for me. What I do now at this point is I'll actually chamber this round, no primer or gunpowder in it, but I'll actually chamber this round in my specific rifle, and when this round is chambered, okay, so kind of picture this as my barrel. I know this is pretty crude, but if I picture this as my barrel, when this round is chambered, the rifling is going to engage the bullet, and the rifling is actually, when I close the bolt, is actually going to push this bullet into the case. Okay, when I pull this bullet out, it's going to give me a pretty accurate measurement from the base of the case, or the bolt face, to where the bullet engages the rifling, and I can measure that. And when I've done this for my gun, I did it 20 different times with 20 different bullets, 20 different cases. And what I did is I took an average. I didn't have any real big outliers, so I didn't have measurements that were coming off like 10 thousandths of an inch high or 10 thousandths of an inch low. They were all within 1 or 2 thousandths of an inch. So my average came out to be 3.303 inches. Okay, so that's from the tip of the case here, I'm sorry, tip of the bullet here to the base of the case here, 3.303 inches. So indirectly, what I've done is I measured where the rifling was engaging the ogive to the base of the case. Okay, now I know they make some comparators. Hornady makes a bullet comparator where it'll actually measure off of that point, and I actually believe that might be even more accurate than what I'm doing here. But for the purposes of what I'm doing, and for the accuracy level that I'm looking for, this gave me pretty good results. All right, so what I've done is I know that the maximum length is 3.303 inches. What I did is I knocked off the 10 to 20 thousandths of an inch, because I know I want the bullet to be pushed in another 10 to 20 thousandths of an inch. Used 15 as my midpoint there, and I came up with a value of 2.827 inches. So when this case overall length is 2.827 inches, then I know that the ogive of my bullet is about 10 to 20 thousandths of an inch off of the rifling, again, in my specific rifle. I know there's a lot of bouncing around there and maybe some indirect measurements and things like that, but what I found is this gives me very good accuracy. So when I went to the manual and I followed that directly, I was getting pretty good results with respect to accuracy. I let my bullet come out a little bit more and get it a little bit closer to the lands. I actually knocked about a 1/4 inch MOA off my grouping, so I was pretty happy with that for something as simple as this. Just wanted to share with you how I determine my bullet seating depth, again, for the style bullet that I'm using. And again, the one that I did here was a Sierra 2145. The other was the Hornady 3040s. Both rounds that I use, both bullets that are very good. So this is the process that I use in order to get my case overall length, again, for the specific bullet and for the specific gun. One thing that I do want to point out is for some Remington rifles that my cousin actually has a Remington, and he's my shooting partner that we always shoot together with. What he has is a Remington 700, and what we found when we tried to do the same thing on his rifle is we found that the Remington rifles in general have what are called longer throats. So the rifling doesn't start as quick or as close to the chamber in the Remingtons as they do, for example, in the Savage that I mentioned. What we did for those rounds is we actually left the bullets as long as we possibly could while they still worked through the action of the gun. So he was still able to load them into his magazine, he was still able to cycle them through his gun, and we did some experimentation, and we found that it actually helped his accuracy too a little bit. So I guess I would do this for your rifle to set your bullet seating depth, and then as my last step, I would actually cycle a few rounds through the gun to make sure that they don't get hung up. The last thing you would want to have happen, obviously, when you're out hunting and you have the super accurate round, is that you go to try to cycle a round into your chamber and it jams. So you don't want to do that. So that's what I do. If anybody has any builds, like I said, I'm brand new to reloading. So if anybody has any builds, or if any comments or adds to what I might be saying here, please leave me some comments, and hopefully as a result everybody becomes a better reloader. Thanks.